Hi, it's Friday, June 12th, 2020. My name is Noah Seeley, and welcome to my channel. So it's Friday today, and following our schedule, today's video will be reviewing some news articles relating to machine learning. We do this in order to stay up to date on the current climate of machine learning each week. I think it's important to do this so as we are thinking of projects or ideas relating to machine learning, we're able to dip into multiple perspectives of what's being done and what can be done. So today I have two stories, the first relating to using machine learning with COVID-19 testing, and the other relating to the future of machine learning in regards to reinforcement learning. I think both of these topics are super relevant right now as we are in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic and as we just started talking about reinforcement learning earlier this week. So without any further delay, let's check out some news. So the first story comes from a blog post by Tiernan Ray on zdnet.com and discusses how a data scientist at the University of Cincinnati is researching cheap and efficient COVID-19 tests that use smartphones and AI. The story starts with quotes from the editors from the Nature magazine discussing how the COVID-19 testing in the US is at a point of disaster, and as testing becomes more and more in demand, emergency approvals may be available for new testing methods. The author writes how one of these solutions may be a smartphone approach paired with some machine learning model, as the camera of the smartphone may be able to detect COVID in subjects in real time. This would be very beneficial to testing in the US, as it would have a reach from large testing facilities to more remote areas which testing labs may not be able to effectively reach. He comments that the science is there for this camera testing and has been boosted since the spread of the disease. He goes on to discuss how Ashish Pri at the University of Cincinnati has been fine-tuning a portable test kit that would take advantage of the smartphone's testing potential. The testing kit, shown in this image, uses a CNN in order to detect traces of the virus from saliva or blood samples recorded by your smartphone's camera. Pride comments that this method is extremely powerful, but also very accessible to the general public. They say that this was made all possible due to the genetic testing known as LAMP. Basically what happens is the RNA sequence in the virus is mixed with specific primers and enzymes and then heated in a polymer tube. This is a process known as amplification and is a process that can multiply DNA or RNA strands many times over. A form of this process known as PCR is usually used for virus testing and research. An even more specific version of PCR is used for COVID-19 testing in lab. This is an effective method for isolating and analyzing the virus. The drawbacks, though, is that it takes a lot of time to process and then ship results. It also requires some very expensive lab equipment. Luckily, some more progressive forms of amplification can be processed for much cheaper, in a shorter amount of time, and Pri's lab is taking advantage of this method, while trying to make boxes of these test kits available to the general population, as we said, in the form of quick smartphone tests. The machine learning related analysis comes from the use of a neural network that can classify proteins from the LAMP reactions as COVID-19 positive or negative. They are currently playing around with several models, including CNNs, decision trees, and support vector machines, to try and find the optimal and most simple solution using machine learning. They say that once this model is determined, they will deploy a smartphone app using the model to go along with the detection test kits. These test kits are also being optimized by the day. The researchers are trying to find a more simple equipment, primers, and amplification method to deploy, as that will produce a cheaper test kit, hopefully with less false positives from all of the optimization being done. The article concludes with saying that the development of these test kits will come out in around a year, and although it may not be a solution for this specific testing bottleneck in the United States, it has created a huge boost in testing research for future generations. So yeah, I think this article just shows how important machine learning is, even in areas of biology and immunology. This simple, compact, and widely accessible testing kit would not even be in consideration if not for the classification models suggested in the article. As the article mentions, although it may come too late for this specific pandemic, I think there can still be a lot of optimism taken away from this story, as it shows that innovations in machine learning will have huge beneficial effect to the progression of modern society in the future. So that concludes the first story for today. Let's now shift gears and look at the next story, which was published about a week ago and discusses the implications for the future of reinforcement learning. If you are unfamiliar about reinforcement learning, I've recently made a quick introduction video on the topic, so go check that out as well. It'll be linked in the description below. As for this paper though, it was written by Tom Talley and begins by giving a short history of the development of reinforcement learning. He mentioned that the idea of reinforcement behavior was introduced in psychology in the 1950s, and that it essentially studies how the frequency of a behavior in an individual is proportional to the consequence or result of that behavior. The author then discusses the current application of reinforcement behavior, from video games to to robotics. It's a similar discussion to what we discussed in my most recent reinforcement learning video, as I mentioned, though he concludes his article with what I think was very interesting. His take on the applications of reinforcement learning, covered by the broad topics of entertainment and healthcare. In entertainment, he, along with Yu-Hen Chen, COO of RCT Studio, believe that reinforcement learning will have a powerful effect, especially on video games. They give the example of reinforcement learning developing non-player characters in games that go much beyond the static rule-based characters that players are used to. As for healthcare, he quotes Noah Giansurakuza, an assistant professor of mathematical sciences at Bentley University. The professor believes that there is some implication to AI prescribing medicine to patients. He comments how the AI will have the power to delve into past medical cases similar to the ones being treated and produce a solution based on the solutions in those cases. Overall, I'm excited that so many applications of reinforcement learning are being thought of. The NPC example in video games was especially something I had never really considered, and it's crazy just to imagine the amount of player engagement that would be present in those games. I think there's a ton of healthcare applications for not just reinforcement learning alone, but also all of machine learning, from ideas such as robotics assisting surgeons to neural networks detecting diseases, as seen in the previous article today. Articles like these just make me more and more excited for the future to come in regards to machine learning and reinforcement learning. So yeah, happy Friday, guys. I hope you learned something from today's news video, and tomorrow we'll be back to our normal content. We looked at two pretty interesting articles today, so as always, I've linked all resources that I've used in the description below for you guys to go check out yourselves. If you feel I've missed anything or gotten anything wrong, please let me know in the comment section below. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.